afternoon, Knulp, in great secrecy, looked himself over in his new clothes. He cut such a fine figure that he regretted not having shaved recently. He didn't dare ask the housekeeper for the doctor's razor, but he knew the village blacksmith and went out to see what could be done in that quarter. He soon found the smithy and went in, proffering the old journeyman's greeting. "A blacksmith from foreign parts requests employment." The blacksmith studied him with a cold eye. "You're no blacksmith," he said. "You can't fool me." "Oh, true enough," Knulp laughed. "You've still got your eyesight. Funny you don't recognize me. Remember, I used to be a musician, and many a time you danced to my accordion on Saturday nights in Heyerberg." The blacksmith knitted his brows and went on filing for a few minutes. Then he led Knulp to the light and examined him. "I've got it," he said with a short laugh. "You're Knulp. People get older when you haven't seen them in so long. Well, what are you doing in Bulak? Why, I can spare a tenner and a glass of cider." "That's very kind of you, blacksmith. I appreciate it. But it's something else I want. Would you lend me your razor for a few minutes? I'm going dancing tonight." The blacksmith threatened him with his forefinger. "You old faker. The way you look, seems to me you can't be very keen on dancing." Knulp tittered gaily. "You notice everything. You should have been a magistrate." "Well, yes, I'm going to the hospital tomorrow. Machold is sending me. Naturally, I can't turn up with this mattress on my face. Give me a razor, you'll have it back in half an hour." And where are you going with it?" "What, over to the doctor's? I'm staying there. Can I have it?" Knulp's story didn't sound quite credible. The blacksmith had his suspicions. "You can have it, but it's no ordinary razor, you know. It's hollow ground, genuine Sollingham. Well, I want to see it back." "Well, you will." "Oh, of course. Say, that's a nice coat you've got on. You won't need it to shave in. I'll tell you what, take it off and leave it with me, and when you come back with the razor, I'll give you your coat." Knulp made a wry face. "All right. You're not exactly a prince, but it's a deal." The blacksmith produced his razor. Knulp left his coat as a pledge, but he wouldn't let the grimy blacksmith touch it. Half an hour later, he returned with the Solingen razor. His unkempt beard was gone, and he looked very different. Now all you need is a flower behind your ear and you'll be ready to go courting," said the blacksmith admiringly. But Knulp was no longer in a joking mood. He put his coat on, said a curt "thank you," and left the smithy. On the way home, he met the doctor, who stopped him. "Where have you been?" he asked in consternation. "And the looks of you! Ah, you've shaved. What an overgrown baby you are." But he was pleased, and that evening Knulp had red wine again. The two school friends celebrated their parting, and both putting on a show of good cheer and repressing any sign of dejection. Early in the morning, the mayor's hired man drove up with the wagon. Two calves with quaking knees stood there in wooden cages, staring wide-eyed into the cold morning. The first frost lay over the meadows. Knulp was helped into the front seat beside the hired man, and a blanket spread over his knees. The doctor pressed Knulp's hand and gave the hired man half a mark. As the wagon clanked away in the direction of the woods, the hired man lit his pipe and Knulp blinked sleepily into the cool, bright blue morning. Later on, the sun came out, and by noon it was pleasantly warm. The two of them in the front seat got along splendidly, and when they reached Gebersau, the hired man was determined to go out of his way and take Knulp to the hospital, but Knulp soon persuaded him, and they parted good friends on the edge of town. Knulp stood by the roadside and looked after the wagon until it disappeared under the maple trees by the cattle market. Then, smiling, he he turned into a path known only to the natives that wound its way between the garden hedges. He was free again. In the hospital they could wait. Once again, the homecomer savoured the light and air, the sounds and smell of his native town, and the exciting, appeasing feeling of being at home. The crush of the peasants and townspeople at the cattle market, the sun-drenched shadows of brown chestnut trees, the dark autumn butterflies in funereal flight by the city wall, the sound of the market fountain with its 4 streams of water, the smell of wine, and the hollow wooden hammering that issued from the cooper's vaulted doorway. The familiar street names, each one shrouded in a dense and restless swarm of memories. With his whole being, the wanderer drank in the enchantment of home, of recognition, of memory, of comradeship with every street corner and every curbstone. All afternoon, he roamed tirelessly from street to street. He listened to the knife grinders by the river and watched the turner through the windows of his workshop and read old familiar names on freshly painted signs. He dipped his hand into the market fountain, but to quench his thirst he waited till he had come to the little abbot's spring, which still gushed mysteriously, as in years gone by, from the lower story of an old house, and gurgled between the stone flags in the strangely clear half-light of its spring house. He stood for a long while by the river, leaning on the wooden rail and looking down at the dark, long-haired waterweeds and the slim black fishes that hovered motionless over the floor of the trembling pedals. He stepped out on the old footbridge, and when he came to the middle, flexed his knees as he had done as a boy, in order to feel the gentle, elastic counterthrust of the wooden structure. Without haste, he went on, forgetting nothing, neither the linden tree and the small grass plot by the church, nor the upper mill pond, which had once been his favourite bathing place. He stopped outside the little house where his father had lived long ago, and for a time leaned his back gently against the old door. He went to the garden and looked over a loveless new wire fence into a newly laid out vegetable patch. But the weathered stone steps and the squat round quince trees were still the same. Here, before his expulsion from Latin school, Knulp had lived the happiest days of his life. Here he had known complete happiness and fulfillment, joys without bitterness, the sweetness of stolen cherries, the delight of tending his little garden and watching his flowers grow, the lovely gillyflowers, the merry bindweed, the tender velvet pansies, and the rabbit hutches and the workshop where he'd built kites and made water pipes from hollow elder branches, and mill wheels out of balls of string with pieces of shingle for paddles. He had known the cats on every one of these roofs, sampled the fruit in every garden round about, climbed every tree, and made himself green dream nests in their crowns. This bit of world belonged to him. He'd known every inch of it, and loved it. Every bush and every slope had held meaning for him, and had its tales to tell. Every rain or snowfall had spoken to him. The air and earth had lived in response to his dreams and desires, and even today, it seemed to Knulp this world belonged to him as much as to any of the owners of these houses and gardens. Or which of them could claim to prize it more highly, or to find more memories in it? Between the nearby roofs, he could see a tall, sharp gable. In that narrow house, Hesse the tanner had lived, and there, Knulp's first tender whispering with girls had put an end to the games and joys of his childhood. Many an evening, as he left that house and made his way home down the darkening street, intimations of love had stirred within him. It was there that he had undone the tanner's daughter's braids, and there that he had reeled under the fair Francisca's kisses. He would take a look around over there later in the evening, or perhaps next day. But now these recollections held little attraction for him. He would gladly have exchanged them all for the memory of a single hour of the time that had gone before, of his childhood. For an hour or more, he stood by the garden fence, looking in, and what he saw was not the new strange garden, which already looked very bare and autumnal with its young berry bushes. He saw his father's garden and his own little flower bed. The bear's ears he had planted on Easter Sunday, and the glassy balsamines, and little mounds of pebbles where he deposited the lizards that he caught over and over again, inconsolable that none would stay and become his pet, but always eager and full of hope when he had captured a new one. Today he would have given all the houses and gardens, all the flowers and lizards and birds in the world for a single one of the summer flowers that had put forth their precious petals, ever so slowly, in his little garden. And the old currant bushes, each one of which he remembered exactly, well, they were gone. They'd not been eternal and indestructible. Someone had dug them up and made a fire. Wood and roots and withered leaves had burned together, and no one had mourned for them. Machold had often come to see him here. Now he was a doctor and a gentleman, and drove around in a fly, visiting sick people. Yes, he was still a good and upright man, but he too, even this sturdy, intelligent fellow, what was he compared to the candid, shy, eagerly affectionate boy he had been then? Here Knulp had shown him how to build cages for flies and towers of shingles for grasshoppers. He had been Machold's teacher and his older, cleverer, admired friend. The neighbour's lilac tree had grown old. It was withered and covered with moss. The lattice-work garden house was a ruin, and whatever they built in its place could never be as beautiful and pleasant and as right as it had been. Night was falling, and it was growing cold when Knulp left the overgrown garden path. From the new church steeple, which changed the face of the city, a new bell rang loud. He crept through the gate of the tannery. It was after working hours, and there was no one to be seen in the yard. Soundlessly, he passed over the soft tanning floor between the gaping pits where hides were steeping in caustic, and stopped at the low wall, beyond which the darkening river flowed between mossy green rocks. That was where he had sat with Franziska late one afternoon, their bare feet splashing in the water. If she hadn't made me wait in vain, thought Knulp, everything would have turned out differently. Even without Latin school and the university, I'd have had the strength and the will to make something of myself. How clear and simple life was. He had thrown himself away. He'd lost interest in everything, and life, falling in with his feelings, had demanded nothing of him. He had lived as an outsider, an idler and an onlooker, well liked in his young manhood, alone in his illness and advancing years. Seized with weariness, he sat down on the wall, and the river murmured darkly in his thoughts. The light went on in a window above him, warning him that it was late and that he mustn't be found here. He slipped silently out of the tanning yard and through the gate, buttoned up his coat and thought of sleep. He had money, the doctor had given him, and after brief reflection, he went to a lodging house. He could have gone to the Angel or the Swan, where he was known, and would have found friends, but he wasn't in the mood. There were many new sights in the town, and formerly every one of them would have interested him. Now he wished to see nothing but what brought back the old times. And then, when he learned that Franziska was dead, everything paled, and it seemed to him that he had come here solely on her account. No, there was no point in roaming about streets and pathways where all those who knew him greeted him with cries of jocose commiseration. When he chanced to pass the health commissioner in one of the narrow streets, it suddenly occurred to him that the hospital people might send someone in search of him. He went to a bakery and bought 2 rolls, which he stuffed in his coat pockets. It was not yet noon when he left the city by a road leading into the mountains. High above the town, At the last bend before the forest, a dust-covered man was sitting on a pile of rocks, pounding the grey-blue shell line to pieces with a long-handled hammer. Knulp looked at him, called out a greeting and stopped. "Grüß Gott," said the man, and went on pounding without raising his head. "Looks like the weather's due for a change," Knulp ventured. "Could be," the stonebreaker grumbled, and looked up, dazzled by the bright light. "Where are you heading for?" "Rome, to see the Pope," said Knulp. "Is it far?" You won't get there today. If you stop every few steps and bother people when they're trying to work, you won't make it in a year." Maybe not." "Well, I'm in no hurry, thank goodness. You're a hard worker, Andres Schaible." The stonebreaker shaded his eyes with his hand and looked at the wayfarer. You know me," he said thoughtfully. "And I think I know you too. I've only got to remember the name. Suppose you ask the old landlord at the Crab. We used to hang out there back in '90, but I guess he's dead." "Oh, he has been for years." Now, I've got it. You're Knulp. Sit down a while. Grüß Gott." Knulp sat down. He had climbed rapidly and his breath came hard. Now, looking down, he saw how lovely the little city was in the valley. The sparkling blue river, the red-brown jumble of roofs and the little green islets of trees between. "You've got it good up here," he said, panting. "Well, it's all right. I can't complain. But what about you? Not the climber you used to be, eh? You're wheezing something awful, Knulp. Visiting the old town again?" "That's right, Schaible. For the last time, I guess." What do you mean?" My lungs are shot. You wouldn't know a remedy?" "If you'd stayed home, friend, and kept your nose to the grindstone, if you'd had a wife and children and a warm bed at night, maybe you'd be all right. But you remember the way I felt about it. Now it's too late. Is it as bad as all that?" "I don't know." "Well, yes, I do know. It's downhill, Schaible. Every day a little faster. Good thing I'm all alone in the world and no burden to anybody. No, whichever way you take it, that's your business, but I'm sorry to hear it. No need to be. We've all got to die someday. It even comes to stonebreakers. Yes, old-timer, here we sit, and neither of us has much call for rejoicing. You had different plans for yourself once. Didn't you want to work for the railway?" "Oh, that's ancient history." "And your children, are they well?" "Well, as far as I know, Jakob's working." "Really? Time passes." "Well, I'll be going now." "What's the hurry? After all these years, look, Knulp, can I help you? I haven't got much on me, maybe half a mark." "Now you can use it yourself, thanks all the same." He wanted to say something more, but his chest ached wretchedly, and he fell silent. The stonebreaker gave him a drink from his cider bottle, and for a time they looked down on the town. The mill race flashed in the sunlight. A wagon drove slowly over the stone bridge, and below the weir, a gaggle of white geese swam indolently to and fro. "I'll be getting on," Knulp announced once more. "I'm rested now." The stonebreaker sat deep in thought. He shook his head. "You know," he said slowly, "you could have been something more than a poor tramp. It's a shame. I've never been a psalm singer, but I believe what it says in the Bible. You'd better be thinking about it too. You'll have to answer for yourself, and it won't be easy. You had gifts, more than a lot of other people, and you made no use of them. Don't be angry with me for saying so." Knulp smiled. There was a glimmer of the old innocent mischief in his eyes. He gave Schaible a friendly tap on the shoulder and stood up. "We'll see, Schaible. Maybe God won't ask me why I didn't get to be a judge. Maybe he'll just say, "Back again, you old fool," and give me an easy job minding children or some such thing. Andres Schaible shrugged his shoulders under his blue and white checked shirt. No use trying to be serious with you. You think God will just crack jokes when Knulp comes along? Ah, not at all. Or maybe he will. Don't talk like that. They shook hands, and the stonebreaker slipped Knulp a small coin that he'd secretly dug out of his trousers pocket. And not wishing to spoil his old friend's pleasure, Knulp took it without protest. He cast a last glance down into his native valley, nodded once more to Andres Schaible, and then, seized with a fit of coughing, he hurried off. He soon rounded the bend and vanished behind the woods.